This video is a redo of my first video on open pit barbecue on a Kettle Grill. This video is just a little more detailed. I show you how to get the same taste and texture of the chicken that you get from a roadside open pit barbecue stand or from the local firehouse when they have a chicken barbecue fundraiser. The meat is moist and tender, the skin is brown but soft, and the chicken has that unique taste that you can only get from a butter and vinegar mop mixed with charcoal smoke. The goal is to slow cook the chicken over the coals like open pit barbecue is done, but without burning it. And while the chicken is cooking, to keep basting it with a vinegar, butter, and lemon juice mopping sauce. On an open pit cook, the chicken sits a lot higher off the coals than it will on a Kettle Grill. So in order to keep the chicken from burning, you are going to want low heat. This is the setup I use to keep a low heat under the chicken so it can slowly brown and not burn. Here's my setup. I have half the kettle filled with one layer of unlit charcoal sitting in the chimney. That's a Master Forge chimney. It holds 70 coal, so that's about 35. What I'll do is I'll fire that up and I'll spread them out evenly over the unlit coal, and then I'll throw the lid on right away to get them coals to settle down a little bit, keep that heat down. The hot coals have been placed on top of the unlit coals, and I spread them around so they're as sparse as I can get them. The next step is I'm going to throw the lid on, or throw the grating lid on, close both vents, top and bottom, and wait for this thing to hit about 250, then I'll clean the grates, and then the chicken goes on. After I clean the grates, I put the lid back on so the coal can tame down a little bit. Right now we're at the 12-minute mark. So we got just about 250. That's what I want to put the chicken on. So now the chicken goes on. We're at the 16-minute mark. Chicken's on. I mopped the bottom and flipped it, then mopped the top. And here's my mopping sauce. That's equal parts of butter, apple cider vinegar, and a little bit of garlic powder. So now the lid goes on, both vents closed, and then we'll start flipping it, mopping it as we go. I'm getting ready to do the second flip on the chicken. We're at 26 minutes into the cook. Actually minus, what was it, 15 till I got the chicken on. But just want to show you the temperature sitting about 2 1/4. And you notice that the vent is opposite the hot coal. This is how I'm monitoring the temperature. And the thermometer is right next to the vent, so that's also opposite the hot coal. So I like to keep this thing about where it's at. So let me do the next flip. I can't show you that because I'm doing this one-handed. The chicken's been flipped, and it's not picking up too much color. Coals are pretty low, so I'm going to let the lid off for a little bit and let the flame start kicking up a little. Get a little bit of heat underneath there. I'm going to let the lid off instead of opening the vents because I don't want those coals to perk up too much. I left the lid off for about maybe 2 minutes. Flame started licking up, so I put the lid back on. Now I'm seeing some smoke billowing out around that lid. That's what you want to see. Unless you got a tight fit in your lid, you won't see that. But you see that smoke coming out, that's what you want. I didn't have that before I left that lid off. So now we know we're getting some heat in there. We're just past the 1 hour mark. So that chicken's been sitting on there for 45 minutes. And you notice nothing's burnt. Fire's a little lower than I'd like, so I'm going to let this thing cook direct for a little bit longer before I go indirect. So let me schmutz her up again, then I'll put the lid back on. Now if you notice, the skin on that chicken's not broken at all. That's because when I flip it by the bone down here, the tip of the bone. So if you're fussy about the way your chicken looks, if you flip it down there using the tip of the bone, that skin will stay intact and look nice for you. Alright, I'll schmutz her up again, throw the lid back on. We're at the hour and 20-minute mark. The chicken's been on about an hour and 5 minutes. Each time I would flip the chicken, which was every 3 to 5 minutes. the kettle is sitting between 2 and 2 1/4. So let's pull this off and see what it looks like. Okay. Looking good. Now I'm going to put her indirect. So this has been sitting right over the hot coals for more than an hour. Nothing's burned on there. So now what I'm going to do is mop it. I'm sorry, I mean schmutz it. Then 15 minutes later I'll mop it again. So we're going to give it 30 more minutes and it should be done. I'll check it at 30 minutes. I like to cook the chicken about halfway over directly over the coals and finish it off indirect. So let me mop these things and then throw the lid on. See you next clip. The lid's on and my vent settings. I want 275 degrees. So I'm going to try half on the top and I have the bottom halfway open. So we'll see if that don't take me to 275. That's what I want to try and keep it at, between 275 and 300. We're at the hour and 35 minute mark. That's 10 minutes since I opened the vents to half. We're only at 2 1/4, so I just opened the top and the bottom fully. See, we can't get that temperature up. My coal might be dying. If that's the case, I'm going to be pissed. We're at the 1 hour and 45 minute mark. That gauge is only sitting at 240. That means my coal's died. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let the lid on it. I won't remop it because once you take that lid off, once that coal's dying, you lose all your heat and that's the end of the cook. So at 240 that'll continue to cook. I mean, you have ribs on there. Ribs cook at 2 1/4, 250. So it'll just take a little bit longer, but they'll get done. Let you know how it turns out. Okay, we're at the 2 hour 17 minute mark. A little past 2 hours since the chicken's been on. I got my 275. I have no idea how long it's been sitting at 275, but the chicken should be done. So let's check it out. I sure hope it's done, because if it's not, I won't get my temperature back. Oh yeah. Excellent. I want between 175 and 180. That's good. That's still good. Dark meat's forgiving as far as moisture. If you got a high temperature on it, it still stays moist. Now I always check down at the joint just to make sure. All you need is 165. So they say. Got my temperature. It's done. So it took, I wanted about an hour and 20 minutes. So it took 2 hours. So we're about 45 minutes longer than what I wanted. But it's done. You can take a look. Nothing's burnt. You probably see the juice coming out there when I poked it with the thermometer. So it's nice and moist. Okay. So it worked out. Just took a little longer than I wanted it to. And that's a wrap. I think what I'll do differently the next time around is to start to cook off with more unlit coal. That way I have more of a fuel supply in case the cook takes longer than what I figured, like this one did. For this cook I start off with 70. The next time I'll start with about 100, or I'll just use Stubbs charcoal instead, because I found Stubbs burns hotter and longer than Kingsford Original. And instead of using a barbecue mop, I'm going to use a basting brush like I used in the first video, because I found the butter clings to the mop and you end up mopping with mostly vinegar. Plus the mop allows too much of the sauce to run off the chicken and drip onto the coals, which ends up cooling down the coals too much.